And contrary to what NBC and other networks may have shown you, their people are extremely pro-America because they long for freedom, as all people do who live under a tyrant. So once all the forced, parades and clapping were over after Soleimani was put in the ground, then we get to see the real thing that's going on right now. Take a look. Yes, there are students in the street tearing down Soleimani signs. They're walking around a U.S.-Israel flag, except, of course, the few people we see standing on the Israel flag right now and the American flag, which makes what I just said awkward. But for the most part, they're walking around the flags. The students are tearing down posters of Soleimani. The Iranian government, they're shooting people already. I know you may find that a shock, but the brutal dictatorship is viciously putting down the protests. So what do you make of all this? Well, look, Trump showed his appreciation. Trump got on Twitter, as he usually does, and said, quote, "Wow, the wonderful Iranian protesters refuse to step on or in any way denigrate our great American flag. It was put on the street in order for them to trample it, and they walked around it instead. Big progress." And then you see here them tearing down the signs. By the way, I could have filled up an hour of them tearing down Soleimani signs. Of course, as soon as Soleimani died, they start putting up all his posters all over the place, like their movie posters. They're ripping down his signs. They're burning his signs. This is happening all over the country as we speak. Well, a couple things. One, this is a good thing. We want these protests to rise, and we want the people there because we are human beings. We want our fellow human beings to experience freedom and prosperity. We don't want anybody on the planet, except for maybe Italians, to have to live under a dictatorship. That's just not something we want. What should we do about it? Probably not much. I know that may make you angry. I know that's contrary to what so many people believe, but understand something, ladies and gentlemen. And the famous words of Ronald Reagan, the most dangerous words in the English language are, "I'm from the federal government and I'm here to help." I like that the President of the United States is out there tweeting his support. You should hit your knees tonight, fold your hands over, and say a prayer to God on high for those people. Pray for their protection. Pray that they get their freedom. We should do all of these things. But let's hold up for a minute on diving in and getting involved in yet another country in the Middle East, yet another country in a completely separate continent. And yes, I said yet another. Could you at least show me, before you talk about getting involved in Iran, boots on the ground, we need to send weapons. You've seen opinions from across the spectrum today. Before you start using words like that and saying things like that, could we maybe, just maybe, I know this is asking a lot, could we leave a single country where we've gone? I know that's a wild concept, but it turns out when you gather up all your troops and you send them over to a country, you actually don't have to stay until the rocks turn to dust. There is a time where you can say, I think we're done. Are we done? We done here? Let's wrap it up, pack it up, and hop on a plane. Yes, I'm jaded. Yes, I don't trust the United States government to properly handle a foreign engagement. Why don't I trust it? Well, let's see. We're still in Iraq, and we have sons in Afghanistan patrolling the exact same streets their fathers did. I'm not making that up. That's not an exaggeration. It's happening. So yes, pray. Yes, I'm glad the President of the United States is sending his best. I'm glad he's sending his regards. But that's where it needs to stop. Let us support them, cheer them on from afar. Go get your freedom, Iranians. I support you all the way. However, because I do not want to send either one of my two sons over there to die for Iran, therefore, I will not vote to send any of your sons over there to die for Iran. Let us, for once, for the first time in 50, 60 years, maybe the first time in 100 years, let us do this wild thing that nobody likes to do. Let us mind our own business. Wild, right? Well, Nancy Pelosi, she's conflicted. And no, I don't just mean, her trying to get out a sentence. Nancy Pelosi, she doesn't know what to think about these protesters.
We're seeing now demonstrations in the streets of Iran against the regime. Do you support those protesters, and would it be a good thing if they brought the regime down?
Well, the protesters are protesting, as I understand it, this brand of protesters about the fact that that plane went down, and many students were on that plane, and these are largely students in the street. I think the Iranians should have not had commercial flights going off when there was.
They're calling out the regime for lying. They're saying death to Khamenei as well.
Yeah, well, whatever it is. But the fact is this: there were protesters in the streets before against the regime. After the taking out of Soleimani, there were protesters in the street joined together, as you know, against us. That wasn't good. Taking down this plane is a terrible, terrible tragedy. And they should be held accountable for letting commercial flights go at a time that was so dangerous. But there are different reasons why people are in the street.
I can't stand Democrats. I know you're not supposed to say that. I actually have plenty of Democrats who watch the show. And look, I'm not saying I can't stand you personally, although I very likely would not be able to stand you personally. But that's just disgusting. I mean, yeah, they're protesting the regime, but in a way, they're protesting us too. And let's not forget, they were protesting us. I mean, the plane was kind of our fault. I mean, it's Donald Trump's fault, right? I mean, it's so in a way, I mean, you could go either way with that. Come on. Yeah, I don't want to put boots on the ground. I don't want to send weapons. I don't want to get involved again. But you're the Speaker of the House of the United States of America, the land of the free, the home of the brave. For the sake of partisanship, you can't go on that show with George Stephanopoulos and say, I stand with him? How hard is that? How hard is it to lay down your partisan sword for a minute and say, we're with you. America stands behind you. We're cheering for you. Go make it. No, it has to be, well, I mean, it could happen to anyone. I mean, we really don't know. Mostly they're probably protesting Trump. I mean, really what they're protesting is the airline. Those Soleimani posters they're pulling down, oh, they just want the paper to start fires. That's all. Gosh, friggin' terrible. But lastly, allow me to wrap this up and reiterate. That's a hard word to say on a Monday. Shut up. Let me reiterate this point. We do not need to get involved. Because do you know why the Iranian people are stuck under this horrible theocracy right now that oppresses them, that oppresses women? Do you know why? It's our fault.